Hi, welcome back to another edition of the Michigan Lacrosse Review. My name is Greg Norman, your host. We're getting off to hopefully a little bit later start than we would like to get to, but we're only about 5 or 6 weeks away from high school lacrosse, and certainly college has started, and it'll be a fun and exciting spring. We're going to stay close to home for this edition of the Michigan Lacrosse Review. We're headed down to Adrian and check in with the fifth-year coach down there, Brent Wetzel. Brett's going to talk a little bit about what it was like growing up in Potsdam, being a part of the programs at Kenyon and Albion, and his influences, and just what kind of luck the folks down at Adrian have coming back from, I think, a really pretty good year, being third in the seed in the MIAA. We'll explain a little bit about how they plan to play this year and hopefully get some insight from Brett's background as a Western New York lacrosse player. Then we're going to head up to all the way up to Midland and talk with Jacob Fredal, who is the brand new coach at Northwood University, and he is in the process of recruiting for the 24 season to start. But he's 25 years old, brand new Division II program that's kind of re-upping. Northwood had a program from 1992 to 2000 under the direction of Ron Ebert at the time, and they're going to give it a go as well. And his background. Jacobs has been the defensive coordinator at Detroit Country Day under Chris Garland the last couple of years, and I'm sure he's picked up a lot from that. But actually played at Lemoyne, which is out near Syracuse, and was in part of a national championship team. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and his background and what it's like to be 25, having never been a head coach of any program and taking over a Division II university where you've got to spend a year recruiting. So it's a pretty interesting conversation and a great young man. So we'll get to that in just a second. Hi, welcome back to the second show of the fourth season for the Michigan Lacrosse Review. My name is Greg Norman. Lucky enough to have with us today Adrian College coach Brett Wetzel, and Brett's starting his fifth year at Adrian, and we're going to talk a little bit about your background. But you guys back on the field, you're practicing, so let's maybe talk a little bit about the MIAA and specifically where you're at with your program right now.
Yeah, I mean we're feeling very good. We're feeling like we're in a really good spot right now. We have a really great group of young guys, 18 sophomores right now on the roster that all came in and got big minutes for us last year, and got a chance to experience a couple really talented seniors from last season that graduated, that kind of had begun to build the kind of core and the foundation of what the program would be and what I wanted it to be like. They had a good understanding of that and really kind of helped our freshmen last year get a feel for that. And they've started to take that with them this year and take a little more ownership of that, which has been really, really fun and exciting to see through the first few practices here this spring. It's been really awesome.
As Adrian gets better, obviously Albion has been a force for a while. Hope has been a force for a while. The MIAA wasn't exactly an MIAA. It was not a national lacrosse league, but it's getting there. It's starting to build that momentum, and it's again, I don't think anybody would look at it as a primary league at the moment. But God, you guys are getting better all the time. What do you attribute that to?
I mean, I would attribute that to the talent in state, I think more and more guys are staying in state and seeing the value of the, small Division III liberal arts education that all of us offer, right? Hope, Albion, Adrian, everyone. We all kind of bring those same kind of elements to the table. Each school offers its own, benefits, of course. But I think a lot of those players staying in state, and, we see it coming through the door with visits all the time, very talented guys. Like I just said, right, we have 18 sophomores on the roster. Like, those guys came in and committed to the program when we were still a nothing program coming out of COVID and still trying to find our feet again. And those guys came in, saw the potential of where we could be and where we could go. And I think we're seeing that with, what Jake has done at Albion, and what Mike has done up at Hope, and going to the NCAA tournament and, winning games in the NCAA tournament. Back in 2015, when I was still at Albion, we won the first game the MIAA had ever won in the NCAA tournament, when we beat Augustana in double overtime. That's still a very fond memory of mine. That was a really great moment. But I think that kind of started to kind of push the MIAA a little bit and see what it could be and where it could go. And I think we're getting those first round wins as a conference, and it's always tough when you end up next round, second round, you're playing RIT or you're playing Denison or you're playing some of the tops in the country. But I think that's only going to help kind of spread the profile of the MIAA and what we're capable of here.
That long ago, I'm going back probably 20 years, Division III teams, a lot of Division III teams were as good as some of the lower level Division I teams.
Yeah.
Sort of, with the growth of the sport, that sort of has dissipated a little bit. And I think what used to be average Division II teams have now come on pretty strong. And then Division II is we look at Indianapolis, they're a powerhouse. They scrimmaged the UAD, to open the season. So, I mean, there's things that are happening in the sport. But surprisingly, we have 179 high schools now playing lacrosse. 5 years ago, we had 139. But if you look at the numbers are dwindling. There's less kids playing on more teams now than there were before. So there's no development. Everybody's got to go travel. And, from that perspective, you see that as being a little bit of a hindrance in development for the program in the state of Michigan?
I would say a little bit. We certainly have started to spread our wings a little bit recruiting wise and finding some guys from Canada and Colorado and tried to build some pipelines there. But when it comes to the Michigan schools, like I'm working with 313 right now, with Coach Brubaker, and I hear about it from some of those kids, like they're with combined teams that didn't used to be combined 4 or 5 years ago. Up in Utica and Shelby, like that kind of area up there. And, and then you hear about those coaches and, it's the kid's dad who was kind of made to take over almost just to keep the program alive. And I could see that being a little bit of a hindrance, but I think then at the same time, you've got those guys that are committed to club teams and working with those club teams and getting some of that coaching from. I know Jake works with a club team with his kids, and I think getting that coaching. I know my group with the 313 guys saw a huge jump in their progression this summer, from the point where they didn't even know like what a 3-3-3 like drop ride zone ride was, and we put that in, and they were getting ride back goals. And I mean, it was crazy. They were getting amped and they were excited about it. Like, I think those guys that are committed to it are definitely going to be capable of continuing to grow and spread the game. Whereas it is getting hurt a little bit. I would tend to agree with that.
I think it's a bigger picture too. When you eliminate a lot of cases, you eliminate, elementary school gym, for example. I would be at Michigan State and I'd have a girl come from a great program and I would be teaching her a drop step. I'm sorry, that's stuff you learn on the playground.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of variables that change it, but that's kind of the direction it's going. Where are you in the landscape of the MIAA in 2023?
Yeah, I mean, so last year we took a huge jump. We were voted number 7 in the preseason poll last season. The guys really took that to heart and, made a big push and ended up number 3 made a return to the conference playoffs for the first time since 2015, all conference players for the first time since 2015, at the end of the day, made a big jump. And, I think now we've got that large group of sophomores, like I said, who went in last year, freshman year, with 0 expectations. Now we have some expectations, now voted number 3 in the preseason poll. And now we have to figure out how to manage that as young guys. I think it's going to be exciting to see what those guys do. That I think they're really pumped up about the opportunity. What's really great about that is with number 3, last season comes better teams on the schedule. We were able to remove a few of those teams that, maybe weren't up to par with us last year and that we beat pretty good out of league. And we were able to add Ohio Northern, Ohio Wesleyan, and those guys were reaching out to us. It wasn't like I had to beg and claw to get those guys on the schedule. They wanted to play us. They felt like it'd be, a good matchup and something they could use on their schedule. And that's huge. I think that speaks to where we're going and what we're doing here. Anytime a historic program like Ohio Wesleyan is reaching out and wants to get on the schedule, we got to drop everything we're doing and get those guys on the schedule. And we're really excited about that matchup. That's going to be a really fun trip for us. And again, there's a chance, we struggle out of league because it is a really tough out of league schedule. But we only think that's going to help us when it comes to those tough games in league. We do play 2 very good teams, 3-4 very good teams in league. It was a real dogfight for us last year in terms of getting that number 3 seed. So I think those games are going to challenge us and really help us prepare for, those games at the top of the league, and then those games kind of in that middle part of the league that are very tough teams, with the likes of Trine and Calvin as well, very tough teams there. So I think shapes up pretty nicely for us, but again, it's going to be a really challenging year, which is going to be exciting to see.
Every president is obviously of every college university loves their athletic department. You've got a unique situation at Adrian. I know President Docking personally, and I only say this not to pat him on the back, but he's a very unique individual in the way he supports athletics. He is certainly visible. He is certainly forthright and be able to be a part of that, and to some extent building Adrian's success on the backs of the athletic department. And providing the facilities and the kinds of things that don't necessarily happen at a lot of other schools. So my question is, that's got to be for you, a relatively younger coach, because I'm assuming you're below 40. So just talk a little bit about what it's like to be at Adrian and the kind of support you do get from the athletic department.
Yeah, it's been pretty awesome. When I first got hired here, Coach Mike Duffy was here as our athletic director, and he's the man that brought me in and believed in me and my vision for what we could be. And he just retired last year, and now, Craig Rainey, our baseball coach, has taken over, and President Docking has certainly been a big push to the athletic program and all teams. Obviously we've seen the success with the hockey team, and our wrestling team just won their first conference title in 52 years. Baseball has obviously been a powerhouse team in the league. So, we've had that success athletically, and a big reason for that certainly is President Docking and making sure that we have the best facilities, the best stadium in the league by far. I always like to say the best stadium in the Midwest. I mean, I've been to a lot of them, and it is very, very top notch. I mean, it doesn't get much better than Docking Stadium. And the ice rink right on campus, the new exciting things we're talking about that I can't quite mention yet on this podcast here, but so we're doing some really exciting things, and to have President Docking, who's very visible on campus. We walk by his office every time we go on a recruit visit, and you can see him in there working. Like, he's very visible. He's not hiding up in some ivory tower. He's in the gym every morning. In fact, I was in the gym a couple of days ago talking to our wrestling coach, and he happened to be in there working out. And he kind of just comes over, gives me a little nod, kind of waves at me. I was like, "Oh, hey, Mr. President, how you doing today?" And he starts pointing at his sweatpants. He was wearing his old AC Lacrosse sweatpants. So I, like little moments like that and little things like that, like he's around, he's visible, he's there. And I think it definitely shows his belief in, a young coach like myself, like you said, and his belief in kind of what we can do here athletically to, not just be successful athletically, but be successful in terms of helping our college grow, helping Adrian, solidify itself when it comes to that small Division III liberal arts education here in the Midwest.
We go back a little bit to the beginning. You're a Potsdam kid and grew up there and grew up in that area. Obviously went to the university as well, played 4 years there. You played for Coach Berkman.
Yeah.
Who's now been there, I think, probably 28 or 29 years. There's no relationship to Jim Berkman, is there? Is that his son?
That's his uncle.
Uncle, okay.
Yeah, and he played down at Salisbury for Jim as well. Yep.
I was not aware of the connection. We had a chance to talk to Jim last year,
Mhm.
One of the things that Jim had talked about, the success of Salisbury, he said it's not unusual for Salisbury every year to have 3 or 4 or 5 disgruntled Division I players who've come back from other schools or stayed home because they want. He
Yeah.
said, so sometimes you look at our program and he says, we've had great success at Division II, but I've got 3 guys that, 2 guys that played at Hopkins, the kid that played at Syracuse. And he says the second string kid at Syracuse is usually a pretty good player, from that perspective. So they've been there a long time. So my question, I'm a Lake Placid kid, so I understand Western New York versus Central New York. Kind of a running joke is people that Albany tell me they're upstate, and I said, well, you're a little not quite that far, but that part of New York, in terms of development of lacrosse, is amazing, and it's really community oriented more than it is regionally oriented. You play for your town. If you're from Cortland, you're from Cortland. If you're from Potsdam, and so on and so forth. What was growing up there like? And then talk a little bit about, did you know you wanted to always coach?
Yeah, so really taking it back here. I like it. I like it. So I grew up down in Ithaca, New York, so central New York, and it's true. I mean, like you said, like you play for your town. We're playing for Ithaca. We want to beat up on Binghamton and Corning. Oh, those Corning guys! I'll tell you what. Back in my day, they weren't combined, and it was Corning East and Corning West, and Corning East always had our number, even though they were we were Class A, they were Class C, and it was always that little rivalry there. And but yeah, I mean, you played for your town. It was a different vibe, and there's still that upstate downstate. Like if you're from upstate New York, Long Island lacrosse is no good. If you're from Long Island, upstate lacrosse is no good.
Right.
Like there is that rivalry, and it's always fun to see those state championship games. It always ended up being a Central New York team against a Long Island team up at Syracuse, and it was always fun to see. But yeah, it was definitely a different vibe. I will say that, as to coming out here and watching, being at high school games out here, it does feel a little different.
What's your undergraduate degree in?
Yeah, so my undergrad degree, I went up to Potsdam, and I had studied history.
Did you always want to teach and coach? That was kind of the way.
So that was always kind of the plan, yeah. And then and then probably maybe 3-ish years from me getting to Potsdam, I kind of decided, maybe college coaching is the way, and tried to kind of focus on that a little bit, and decided to move away from the high school teaching route, but couldn't be happier with that decision. So that the coaching always was kind of in the cards. And I think it started with, being around Frank Welch down at Ithaca, and, seeing the way that he worked with us as high school kids, and the way that program was raised up. It was raised from the lowest levels. You were playing when you were in first grade, and you were learning to kick the cross balls around on some crappy grass field in some public park. Also, I mean, the Mark Wenham was a huge influence for me, an old Syracuse defenseman. He was a huge influence for me. One of my first coaches, he was my modified coach. Modified, I don't know if that's a thing out here, but so like sixth grade, 7th grade, 8th grade is modified. And then when you move to 9th and 10th, that's junior varsity. And then 11, 12 varsity was the general kind of a ladder that you would take. But so he was one of my first true competitive coaches, and to have a guy like him around to push you all the time was just awesome. And then to progress up to working under Coach Welch, and Coach Moffitt was our defensive coach back then, and he was quite the character, and another all-world defenseman. He was something else that really took us to the next level. And those guys were huge influences to me, and I think that's what led me to want to do the coaching and go coaching.
Bob Dowd, who's the athletic director at Troy Athens, is a Cortland guy. So
okay.
we've had a 25-year running battle
between, is it a Long Island attackman that's better than a, Central New York defenseman? We go back and forth with that discussion, and Bob still it's funny because he'll first time I'll see him, he'll mention, especially if I see him in the spring, he'll mention some score between Cortland and somebody from the reservation or whatever. So it's very parochial about when you grow up there and what it means, and that's something that's a little unique.
I still remember, man, I think it would have been like maybe 2003. Danowski, Panarelli, and the Farmingdale team came up and took on Matt Kasalia, Drew Dabrowski, and the West Jenny guys in the state title game. And that was a sight to see. I mean, those guys were something else, just next level. And to see that going on in a high school game is just crazy. But to be able to watch some of those programs, and that West Jenny team, we actually lost to those guys in the state playoffs that year. So to kind of see that and watch that, Central New York versus Long Island. And then, back in that day too, they used to have the old Empire State games. I don't know if you remember those.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, that was the biggest thing too. They're trying out for those teams, and, Central team was always like a Carolina blue, and each kind of region had their own color, and, you'd see those gloves and those helmets around at events and stuff. And, oh man, you're bringing me back here, Greg. You're bringing me back, man.
I lived at the bottom of Whiteface, so I was a ski racer. I coached ski racing for years. So the Empire's games were also part of the winter was
every sport, all sports. Yeah.
So it was the same color schemes, and, you had the same, it's hard to explain, but the Canusa games here in the Flint area are sort of they were bigger back 15 years ago, but the Canusa games, which is a Hamilton, Ontario, and Flint, Michigan, they've had this long-standing athletic competition that's sponsored by their recreation departments. Very similar to that process, but it's hard to explain when you go to even Long Island game. You go to a high school game and see 5,000 people. That just doesn't happen here. There's nothing against it. It doesn't. But it is what it is. Before I get into a little bit about Kenyon, which is where you eventually ended up matriculating to, you're a defensive guy. And it just hit me. You think it's harder for a defensive coach to coach offense, or for an offensive coach to work back and coach defense? I've never really asked that question before, but you're mentioning all of these, legendary, defensive coach, yet you have spent some time coaching offense.
Yeah. It's interesting. That's a great timing on that. I'm bringing that up too, because I'm making the move back to the offensive side of the ball this year for coaching. I brought in a very talented young assistant coach last year, Nate Okerman from Concordia, Wisconsin. And he came in, felt good about coaching offense and thought, I got this, I can do this. And we struggled in a few aspects, and, we had a conversation at the end of the year and said, you know what, let's get you back to the defensive side of the ball where you're very comfortable, and I'll go back to the offense and see what we can do. And we'll try to workshop some things. And I actually find it a little bit easier, I think, for a defensive coach to go to an offensive side of the ball. I think that because then I've been able to use this with some of my guys to discuss, hey, if I'm a defenseman, this is what I want to do to stop you. Right. So this is where I'm going to rotate to or rotate from, or this is going to be my approach, and this is my angle, or what have you. And then we can kind of work on that, building those skills in terms of, a hitch move or something like that, and explain. I have found nowadays it's very important to give the why as to why you want to do things, right? Why do we need to have a hitch move at this point? Or why do we want to shoot from here? And, being able to talk through the reasoning, and the reasoning coming from a defensive aspect, I think has been very helpful. Obviously, I can't really speak to the offensive background to a defensive background to a defensive coach, but I do find it to be it's not as challenging as I maybe once thought and once feared when I was first coming into college coaching.
I'm an offensive guy, and the only caveat, we've had these long discussions. I've been really fortunate with this series. We've had Danowski and Gary Gay. We've had some serious got talent on part of this. And then I've worked now with the PLL the last couple of years doing some of their interviews. But hanging around the highest levels, the argument becomes, especially if you're sitting around a table with a bunch of guys that have played a little bit, the only caveat different is I absolutely know where I'm going as an offensive player, and you have to guess as a defensive player. That's the only advantage I really have.
Mm-hmm.
You can take me where you think you might want to take me, but if I'm a smart offensive player, I still know where my feet are going, and you still have to follow me. That's the only advantage offense really has. Now that said, everything being equal, obviously, an inferior offensive player against a superior defensive player, or reverse that, it's a moot point. But it's that, I think, and again, I'm 68, I'm still coaching. It's that cat and mouse game of how you play it is why we pursue the things that we pursue. So, I was just curious. That question popped in my head, and I just thought I'd ask a defensive guy what it's like to coach offense.
Yeah, I've bounced around. My last year at Albion, I coached the offensive group. My first 2 years at Kenyon, I coached the offensive group and then moved back to defense. And then since I've been here, I've kind of split the time almost depending on, who our assistant coach was at the time.
You're lucky enough to have played for Berkman at Potsdam, obviously Doug Massardi at Kenyon. Just briefly talk about Doug's influence, because Doug's been there now, I think, 16 years. And we've had some background with Doug. He's a first-class guy and has built a really good program there.
Yeah. Coach Mazzardi, it was tremendous, is still even a tremendous mentor. And we model a lot of the things that we do here off of things I picked up from Coach down at Kenyon, whether it's, how we plan practice, how we draw up practice, even honestly, even the things we do in the office on a day-to-day basis. He had a really great model down there. I think you can see with the success that they've had over the last couple of years, and some of the talent they've brought in over the last couple of years, that they've been doing some great things. And I think that definitely speaks to Coach Mazzardi and the work he's put in. But I can't be happier for my time down there. Obviously, working for Jake was one thing, and getting that experience. And he's a bit of a different cat, so it was nice to kind of get the flip side from Coach Mazzardi, who's uber organized to the nth degree, has a game plan for absolutely everything, and has an answer for everything every moment. He probably won't like me saying that, but he knows it all, in my opinion. And he was a great guy to work for, and kind of, like I said, we model just about everything that we do here off of what I learned from him.
He's definitely a type A. When you're recruiting at Kenyon, explain what you'd have to explain to the recruits. And if you haven't been there, go to the website. You get this really cute sort of New England town and this really cute campus. And in the middle of it, they dropped a spaceship, the most unique, distinctive college building any place on the planet that doesn't look like anything in the neighborhood. We were joking before the interview, because obviously we both have been in that facility, but you had to explain that to people. It's hard to explain, but it looks like a spaceship.
Yeah, you've got the full kind of metal roof that kind of cascades down off of the highest level there. It's pretty wild. Obviously I think we have some very fine facilities here at Adrian, but that indoor facility that they have is pretty wild. It's pretty insane. I still have some great photos from times where we were out in the stadium practicing and snow was falling, and you've got the lights from the Kenyon Athletic Center. I think they've changed the name now, but you got the lights from that building kind of shining out, and it's just kind of a tremendous sight to see. But Kenyon was a different place. a very kind of, like you said, small kind of New England town. It's really tucked away and kind of pops up out of nowhere. You're kind of be driving around in central Ohio there, and then boom, there's Gambier, Ohio, home to Kenyon College, one of the finest institutions in the country. It was a pretty wild experience. Fit me very well, I think. It's kind of tucked away in a wooded area. You've got lots of you got the trails for biking, and like kind of a real hippy dippy kind of liberal place, which kind of fit me very well at the time. And I will say the nice thing about being at Kenyon too was, not just learning from Coach Mazzardi, but a whole different ballgame when it comes to recruiting, when it comes to the type of player you're bringing in. We were recruiting on a national level. New England, I would go to Massachusetts, was kind of, I guess we could say we kind of had territories. I would kind of cover Massachusetts and made a trip out to San Diego, got, to see some California guys. And I mean, we were everywhere, Minnesota. I mean, we were everywhere. The process there is completely different too. With early admission and something that early decision, we were getting commitments and trying to push through commitments basically the summer, rising senior summer. And that's pretty rare for a Division III college. Whereas at Adrian, we've had times where we've had commitments come in May of a rising senior summer. Like I should say after they've graduated, I should
Right.
say. It was just a different timeline.
Yeah.
And that is how the NESCAC schools, the Tufts and Wesleyan and those schools, that is how they do it. And Kenyon was working on the exact same model. So that was a very different experience. But, when you're recruiting to a place like Kenyon, it's honestly not too hard to sell that place. Like you said, the spaceship, the academic rigor you're getting from a school like that, and just the vibe at that place is pretty unmatched.
I should point out that the spaceship vernacular I'm using is just my version of what it looks like. So I'm sure there's architectural words that would describe it better than I did, but it does look out of place. It's still a great facility. But talk briefly before we finish up. You did get a chance from Kenyon to Albion. You got a chance to work with Jake DeCola. You've had some good mentors. Jake would be one of those, I would think.
Yeah, Jake. Jake took a chance on me right out of. I took a gap year after I graduated college, and kind of figured out, where would be best for me. Tried to figure out what I wanted to do, and started applying for jobs. And Jake was one guy that took a chance on me, and it was the second year of the program at Albion, and it was growing. And I don't think Albion really quite knew what they were doing with lacrosse, I guess, at the time, and they were still kind of feeling it out a little bit. It was something new for them, of course. And Jake took a chance on me, and I'll always be grateful for that. And he taught me a lot in terms of doing things a little differently. Thinking outside the box is certainly one of his fortes. And he's kind of brought that out of me in terms of being willing to do that and being more willing to do that. Which is a great dichotomy to Coach Mazzardi, who's
right,
like you said, very buttoned up and type A, and DeCola's just all over the place.
No, but I'm saying those are that mentoring and that sort of both ends of the scale.
Yeah.
Gives you something to weigh it against, and then you get to put your own voice to it.
Yeah.
And I think that's something, if you're only raised, with one voice, it becomes a little more difficult. I think that's
for sure. It was great. And, Jake will still be one of my first calls when I'm, fighting through something or whatever. And, even though it's tough at times because you can't really do the whole, I don't want to give too much away. He doesn't want to give too much away,
Right.
so
No, I
there's
get it.
a little bit of that dynamic going on. So it makes it tough at times, but, he's been a great mentor and a great guy as I took the reins of this program. He was a big reason why Coach Duffy took a chance on me here at Adrian. I think Jake really kind of went out on a limb for me, stood up for me. I think he knew it was going to be a tough go here to start because the program was in really bad shape.
It was.
But I think he knew that I was a guy that could handle it and was going to do it and was going to commit to it. And I think he really spoke up for me, and I'm forever grateful to him for doing that. And I know Coach Duffy gave me the chance, I think, because Jake stood up for me and wanted me to get this position here. And he's we've had several conversations about us matching up against each other, maybe in a championship game here at some point, hopefully soon. Obviously, we've got some teams we got to get through to get to that point, but that's kind of one of those cool moments, right? Where,
Oh, absolutely.
Go, mentor versus the mentee in a game, like a meaningful game. So, but yeah, I mean, and the thing too, I think that kind of goes maybe unmentioned is how his family kind of took me into his wife and his kids, Angie and Gianna and Camille. They kind of took me in, and I would, be over there for dinners and stuff because I wasn't exactly making a whole lot of money,
Right.
which I think is pretty obvious. And, they took me in, and, I'm forever grateful to that whole family for helping me out and getting me to where I'm at now.
Good. Well, listen, it's been really a pleasure to listen and have a chance to talk to you a little bit about Adrian and a little bit about your background. And we can only hope we wish you the best for the season. And it was nice to get to know you. I really appreciate the time, and hopefully have a great spring.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for the opportunity, Greg. I really appreciate it.
I want to thank Brett for spending some time with us and kind of learning a little bit about Adrian. And if you know anything about the university and administration, President Docking out there is a first-class guy and does great jobs for the sports and activities at Adrian College. If you don't get a notice, you should check that out. Up next is Jacob Fredal from Northwood, and we're going to learn a little bit about lacrosse in Western New York. We'll be back in a second. Hi, welcome back. We're talking with the brand new coach at Northwood University, Jacob Fredal, who is also a local kid. Went to Eisenhower High School. And first of all, congratulations on getting the job. And we're going to kind of cover what it is that you're doing. There's a little flag behind you, which I guess is your adornment for a brand new office, because you're not going to be actually playing until 24, 25. But first of all, congratulations on the job. And maybe give us a thought on what it's like to be, I'm guessing you're what, 26, 27?
25.
25 and head coach. So what's that like since you got the job on December 19th?
Yeah.
So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much, Greg. It's been exciting. It's been chaotic for sure. It's kind of been like drinking out of a fire hydrant at times with all the information and stuff, but
right.
Recruiting is going really well. Can't win without the Jimmies and the Joes. So we've getting very solid recruits for this 23 class, and then working on the 24 class, and just kind of learning the way, testing the ropes and seeing who we can get to, come and believe in this program and help us kind of build it the way that we want to do it.
I'm going to get to all the Northwood stuff, but let's take you back a little bit. Where did you start playing? Because obviously you played 4 years at Eisenhower. Where'd you pick up a stick for the first time?
Avon Sharks.
Okay.
That was where I got my lacrosse career started. But I think it started even before then. I have 5 brothers.
Right.
We grew up playing in the backyard. We had a net and we had a hill that kind of led into the net. So we had like a built-in backstop.
Right.
And we'd go out there and play a lot. And I'm kind of like a 3rd generation lacrosse player because I have 2 older brothers who are 7 years older than me, and then 2 other older brothers who are 4 years older than me. So kind of started playing the goalie a little bit when I was younger, just being the youngest. It kind of threw me in there, but that's what kind of shaped the love of the game for me because we all played.
So your first influence was Bob DeMarco.
Bob
I'm
was
not
ahead of
gonna.
he ran the Sharks for a long time. Was he there when you
Okay.
were there?
I'm not quite sure. I remember there was a guy named Judd,
Okay.
who played at Oakland.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was my coach for like sixth, seventh, and eighth.
Okay. Bob is the president of that organization. It doesn't matter, but so there
Okay.
from there. Obviously, you started at an early age and played all the way through high school. So you were a Macomb County kid.
Yep.
Then you end up in Lemoyne, out near Syracuse. How do you go from one to the other? What was the connection there?
So originally I was committed to Seton Hill, another great program that's actually in our conference, the GMAC.
Yep.
Had a good relationship there because my older brother played there, played under Coach Novotny. I was late in changing my mind. It was just coming off after football season. I had a broken hand at the time. I actually cut my cast off, went on a visit to go to Lemoyne, and fell in love with the program, fell in love with, what they were doing out there with Sheehan. It was an easy decision when you walked in the office and he put a ring down on the table and told you, this is what we're chasing. This is what we do here.
Well, the other thing too is you had Tim Desco on that staff, and
We
Tim's
did.
dad, obviously the great longtime coach at Syracuse. So I'm assuming he is cutting his teeth as a young coach with Lemoyne. And it's not always bad to have your dad, sort of recognized as one of the best coaches in the country, both at Syracuse and certainly the national team for a long time. So you were in good company.
Yeah, I mean, the coaching staff there, I think, gave me all the tools and kind of started to show me, like this is kind of what I want to do. This coaching thing is an incredible thing. I mean, they helped me along the way a lot. Being a kid from Michigan, Sheehan was like a father figure. I
Yeah,
didn't have family out there.
yeah, he's been there a long time. Are they 2 or 3 in
They're
division?
Division two. Yep.
Division 2. So some familiarity with coming obviously to Northwood, and I think if I'm not mistaken, your 2016 team was undefeated and won a national championship. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
Where did you
Yeah.
guys play the championship that year?
Philadelphia.
Okay. Well, that's got to be from Eisenhower playing in the stadium that size. That's got to be a big deal.
Yeah, that was a great experience. Being a part of that team, that team was the definition of like just a winning culture, from the top down, and the love for each other that we had every day showed, and it was an incredible experience that I think about often, and I still talk to a lot of those guys.
Yeah. Just having to march into that stadium lately, and I say lately, if you go back 10 years, I think I'm not sure. I don't remember. I think it was in Baltimore. You go to the national championship for about 25 bucks. Then all of a sudden they fill 55,000 seats. The NCAA says, well, let's jack the price up to 85 bucks or 100 bucks a seat. Then they lost half their audience. But what you're seeing in the Division 2 and the Division 3 level is now they're getting with ESPN Plus, they're actually you're able to start to see some of those games. And the last, I think, 2 or 3 years, the national championship for Division 2 or Division 3 is pretty good. If you watch a Salisbury play or a Lemoyne play, there's not a lot of difference between those schools and maybe even a Division 1 Bellarmine. Obviously, they're not Hopkins, but they can certainly compete with the teams at the level that we're talking about, the UADs and the Bellarmines and some of those kind of schools. I mean, that's good lacrosse, to say the least.
Yeah, 100%. And you see it early in the season when all these teams are scrimmaging each other. I think talent doesn't have a division. There's teams that are really
Right.
good that could play at any level, and they go and they get their reps in by playing each other because they know that the program they're going against on that day, no matter the division, is going to give them a good test.
Jim Berkman, we interviewed last year, and I said this in an earlier interview, is that Jim Berkman always talked about that there was always 3 or 4 guys that came home to play for Salisbury that had been Division 1 guys. They had been at Hofstra, they'd been at Richmond, or they'd been someplace, and they just wanted to stay home for a girlfriend or for school or whatever it might be. The last time he won a national championship, he had the second leading scorer from Syracuse the year before. He just comes home. Well, you're playing against this. You got 1 or 2 Division 1 players, caliber players playing at Division 2 or Division 3. You have a bit of an advantage, to say at the very least, but at any rate. So with a financial degree, you worked a little bit in the finance business, but when did the coaching bug get you?
2020, like right after, I guess 2020, 2021, right after the COVID year. I've been coaching for the last 2 years. It's been an absolute blessing and honor to be a part of the Detroit Country Day program. Chris has great things going on down there, and also the Cherries, and those people, those other coaches really helped shape the way that I wanted to coach and taught me a lot of lessons. And, being a new head coach, I draw from them still a lot. I'm constantly on my phone right now. It's kind of the name of the job. No team, got to find the team. And if I'm not texting players or calling players, I feel like I'm talking to one of them. So
You mentioned Chris. We're talking specifically about the head coach, Chris Garland, who's been at Detroit Country Day now, I think 6 or 7 years, if I'm not mistaken. He's also a teacher there. And the Cherries is the Kenny program, Nick Kenny's travel program, for-profit company that does a lot of stuff. And they've built one of the, sort of the premier travel programs in the Midwest. They've had, great success, and you've been a part of that. So now you're reaching out, you decide you're going to make this a career, and so Northwood has an opening, and you sort of make a call to move to kind of the middle of nowhere to some extent. Midland and Northwood is not exactly on the beaten track. What attracted you to Northwood?
So, I'm gonna be honest. My first experience with Midland, my true first experience was the interview. We went out to lunch. We got to see the town a little bit after went through about 8 different interviews that day. It was a long day. It was a great day, but just the campus itself, the environment, everything's it's kind of like, you're right. It is off the beaten path. We got a lot of trees on campus. It's a really beautiful campus. And then the program itself, like the degrees that you can earn here, that was something that really attracted me. I think that there's certain things that it kind of takes, like characteristic wise of a school, in order to be successful, especially in lacrosse. A great degree is a good start, and then just foundation of support through the athletic department, and then really incredible facilities. I think that this place, in terms of building, I've talked to a lot of people. We're starting flat, but I think we're starting on an elevated flat surface. I think we have an advantage. There's no real, crevices or hills or anything. It's a flat thing that we get to make and build off of. But I think that we're elevated in the sense of, with the facilities we have, with the athletic support from the athletic department, and then alumni too. Having the program it was a Division II program back in the 90s. There's a lot of excited people who have gone off and had really good careers because of their Northwood degree, that are really excited for lacrosse to be a thing again here. So
no one more excited than Ron Ebert, who was the coach that was there from 92, I think, to 2000, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in that ballpark. Ron was there and had built the program. When you were interviewing for the job, did the university explain to you what their reasoning was behind, restarting lacrosse?
So they did, and they've been trying to do it, which was my understanding, for like the last 2 years. There's been a lot of planning that has gone into it, which I think was a really good sign on my end when I was considering the job. A big push of this is to help, draw people to the school, and then also help build their athletic sports that they offer. And they felt like they could be successful at lacrosse, and they felt like there was something that they could add for a spring sport. And lacrosse it's a fast-paced, fun game to watch. Great time to be outside and to see the ball move around and goals being scored. You got the shot clock, so now you're talking about really high-scoring games, really a lot of excitement. It's a spectator sport, and it's a thing that draws people, and I think it's a special sport. That can really benefit the community as a whole. And with Midland, the unified program, that was very, very good for the last few years. Now they've had to split. I think there's just a ton of interest in lacrosse. It's the fastest growing sport.
Yeah.
There's a million reasons why they probably wanted to do it.
Well, Joe Stoudemire, who's the Midland he's been the coach of the combined program for a long time. He's developed a grassroots program there in the community that's, unparalleled in a whole lot of communities. Certainly, schools are building enrollment through athletics. I mean, that's not exactly a secret. At a Division III school, it's a little bit different because obviously there are no scholarships. So 2 questions: what league are you playing in? And are you not afraid, but does going to Division II, you have experience at Division II, but going to Division II, you're really recruiting a different kid than you're going to recruit for Division III. Because if you think about what league are you guys in?
So we're in the GMAC. We're going to be we were in the GLVC before, but we just actually transferred. Now we are going to be playing teams like UND, Lake Erie, Mercyhurst, Seton Hill. So it's a great conference.
Serious conference.
Yeah, very good. And I think that's a great thing in itself. Iron sharpens iron. A good competitor, you thank that, and you want that out of a program. You want to be playing the best of the best. That's how you kind of ramp up and get to that level. And then the second question, it's a unique thing that we're doing in general, building a program from scratch. I'm a big believer in trust over talent. I need to be able to game plan at the end of the day. I need to know what this person's going to bring to us every single day to the table. We want people who love the game first and foremost. And then since we are Division II and not Division III, we are able to offer scholarships. So that helps bring very talented players and get them a degree that's already voted, the best value degree in business in terms of return on your investment. So I think it's an awesome deal that we're able to offer people. And I think, being able to offer scholarships kind of opens the door for us to expand outside of Michigan, outside of the Midwest even, for guys that we're looking at, and then really start to be, I'd say definitely, I don't want to say nationwide yet, but more than just one region for the guys that we're looking at.
If you look at the sport in the state, we're 53 years old now. We talk about being a young sport. We're not. We're 53 years old. Nobody would consider 53 years to be young. Second part of it is we have 179 teams playing high school today, where 5 years ago we had 139. And while that's a good number, the reality is that there's less kids playing today than were playing 5 years ago. And we're down to 56 JV programs across the state. I know that as the secretary of the Coaches Association. That's not a good trend. My point is this: in recruiting a different athlete for Division II, and then looking at the MIAA rosters across the line, you're starting to see kids. I'll give you the example of Adrian, where you're starting to see kids from Denver and Minnesota, and in some cases, Western New York. You're starting to see a much deeper bench that's not Michigan. And my point to you, so the question becomes, do you look at the difference between a Division III and a Division II athlete? Is there a noticeable difference? Is it 1 inch and 20 pounds, as it might be in football?
No, so I don't think it is. The Division III programs, there's a ton of them that are extremely successful, and there's a few good ones in the state that are really successful and have had continued success, and that's no mistake. They bring on really talented people and they have a good coaching staff. Difference wise between a Division III and a Division II guy, talent wise, probably not much in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think
me. Yeah, so I honestly believe that maybe they come to Division III a little bit more raw in terms of lacrosse IQ and stuff like that.
Okay.
And they have to be developed more, where in the Division II sense, maybe they have that side of things kind of developed a little bit more. But, in terms of size, I don't think there's anyone harder to guard than a small shifty guy, on the offensive side.
No.
And then, when you get really tall poles, like I was a tall pole, I'm 6'4". There's challenges that come with being tall and bigger. Instead of having a better center of gravity at someone who's maybe 6 feet, 5'11", and can do more athletically with their feet. There's no real, I guess, formula. It kind of comes in a lot of different ways and looks a lot different across the board. There are definitely things that I look for though, in terms of talent and IQ wise.
Okay. The 1 inch, 20 pounds, it was a metaphor in terms of, I don't necessarily mean 1 inch taller. I think you have to find a better skilled athlete at Division II because they just play better.
Right.
That's not to suggest there's not good Division III players. There's a ton of them.
Right.
And even with our Division III programs, which have had some success, we still only have, the MIAA only still has one victory outside into the NCAA tournament in 10 years. So I don't think you could make an argument that we're great Division III programs at the moment yet. It's coming. You can't compare them to, say, the Northern Ohio programs where you've got Denison and Wesleyan and some of those schools. And that's not to disparage, it's just we're growing to some extent. And so the net of finding players, I would think for you has to be, I would guess that as a 25-year-old head coach, you're spending a lot of time traveling outside of the Midland area looking for players.
Yeah, definitely. So most of our 23 class, the guys that we're looking at just on the offensive end, are out of state, and that's that's a tribute to a few things. Timing is definitely a big one. We're definitely late in the recruiting cycle. And then also just, we're looking for a certain type of play to move the ball. Good things happen on offense when you are able to swing the ball, and we need two-handed players. And you kind of see that less, I'd say, in the Midwest region. Maybe attribute that to box, maybe you attribute that to youth programs, whatever you could attribute it to. Just more refined, stick skills, I think, is a big part, and being able to play at a certain speed. It's a fast game. I've said that, and I really don't think you can describe it in any other way. It's extremely fast. You have to be able to move the ball quickly and make decisions quickly, and be effective with your stick.
How do you sell 25-year-old inexperienced head coach as part of that dream?
So you're surrounded by great people. I mean, the smartest guy in the room knows he's not the smartest guy in the room. I know my flaws. I definitely think I'm very self-aware in that sense. Experience, that's something that I need to find. So I'm looking for an assistant coach who has experience. We've been going through some candidates. I have some good ideas of who I want, some interest, and the guys, their attributes are, having that experience either as a head coach at the collegiate level or assistant coach, and who can help kind of be my yin to my yang. Being young is not a bad thing.
No.
I'm constantly learning, that's for sure. But everyone is, and in lacrosse especially, you've seen it in the transition of the offensive sets and what people are running. They change yearly, and they're developing, a more fluid offense. It's not the same as it was 15 years ago. You can draw some stuff, even if you draw from things, even if you were, 15 years experience, but you still got to adapt and learn in order to be successful. So I think it's a level playing field experience wise. Gonna be learning, gonna be doing as much film, as much work as possible to broaden my skill base and my knowledge, and surround myself with great people. Any organization that has multiple great people in it, sets themselves up for being successful.
Well, if you get a look at Midland, I think it's a bit of a gem, kind of a hidden gem. You got to think about it this way: you got a minor league baseball team in town that's an entertainment kind of thing in the summertime to some extent. It's obviously having Dow there is the caveat to its quality and what it brings with. I don't know that they have a symphony, but my point is it's not like living in the middle of nowhere. It's a pretty upscale community with a lot of very terrific assets, and I think that also helps. Will you guys be playing in the football field, or will you be building something separate?
So there's talks of building something separate. Nothing is concrete yet. There's just been talks of it, but until then, we will be playing on the football field. It's a great field, John Hant Stadium. So we're really lucky to have that. I hope we get to fill out that stadium. I hope that the support continues to translate, and then when we get games on in the fall and the spring, probably not going to do too many games, a lot of practice the first year, but obviously, that 24 fall, 25 spring, when we first start to have our first home games, I hope that stadium's packed. So.
Well, that would be a first in that league, because even if Indy plays Lake Erie, you're still only talking maybe 400 or 500 people.
Yeah.
Last year, Michigan and Maryland played, and I had a chance to work that game. You're talking the number one team in the country coming to Ann Arbor, and I think they sold 900 tickets. We're not in a sport necessarily that's going to draw like football might.
Right.
I don't think we're going to confuse that in those situations, but there's certainly got to be a lot of excitement.
I'd be extremely happy with 500 people, though. I'll tell you that 500.
No, I don't. but your football stadium, if I'm not mistaken, probably holds 4,000 or 5,000.
Yeah, it's pretty big. It's really nice stands, and we can definitely fit a lot of people in there.
Is there turf there, or is it still grass?
It's turf.
Okay, I kind of bypassed Midland a little bit over the last couple of years. I was not sure. They've got great facilities, and that stadium was built, I think, probably in the 60s. If I'm not mistaken.
I'm not sure on that, to be honest.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, we wish you the best of luck. It's always lovely to see and terrific to see a local kid done well. And in any way that we can help build that program or spread the word a little bit, certainly let us know. And we wish you the best of luck.
I appreciate that, Greg. It was great talking to you. Hope to see a lot of people come out and support us. I think that it's an exciting thing for a lot of student athletes. First off, people who are in high school right now to have another program, you know, in the state of Michigan. Being a guy who left Michigan to go play lacrosse, it's not all sunshines and rainbows when you leave.
Right.
You're on your own, you know, and being able to stay close home to family and have your parents come to games and be able to tailgate with them after and stuff like that. I mean, it makes a world of a difference. So I hope that we offer a home to those guys, you know, and then people who come home from maybe playing a Division 1 that didn't work out, you know, our door's open. I'm not hard to find. I have my phone on me all the time. Give me a call. So, and the lacrosse world's small. It's not like
It is.
the rule of 9. It's like more like the rule of 3. It takes 3 people and you know everybody.
Yeah, it was very small. So again, best of luck.
Thank you.
I want to thank Brett and Jacob for coming aboard and talking with us a little bit about Michigan lacrosse at the collegiate level. Hopefully they have great seasons, and as the weather gets warmer and we get a chance to spend some time outside, check out a lacrosse game because we think you'll enjoy it. So for all the folks in back, my name is Greg Norman. We'll see you next time on the Michigan Lacrosse Review.